It helps, like, if they're in your business to see how they conduct business before you just jump in there.
Huge development going across the street.
Ladies and gentlemen, 6 p.m. So we'll call the meeting to order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, May 11th. If you would at this time, please rise for our invocation by Sheriff Kilgore, followed by our pledge.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. God, we come today and give thanks for our community. We give thanks for each person who's here that cares so much about the way that our fellow citizens live. And we ask that you guide each person as we work together to try to make things better for each one of us. Lord, thank you for the many blessings that you've given us. And we ask that you continue to shine your light on Collinston and Upson County and the surrounding areas and make this a beacon for you. And may all of our work be pleasing and satisfying to you. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sheriff. If you join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, like I said, it's been a while since we've had a room, and as we have been doing, these meetings are being broadcast on YouTube. So if you are called on or asked to speak, please speak clearly, and so folks that are watching tonight live or watching later will hear you clear. So before we get into the agenda, I have a couple changes to the agenda. I would like to propose that before we start the public hearings, I would like to add a discussion of our county court facility issues and challenges. And then under the consent, I propose that we remove item D, the rec department fee schedule, and other items off the consent and under new business. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a change to the agenda, but I would like to make an announcement. I need to be in attendance tonight at my daughter's honor night at the high school, which takes place at 7. So I'm going to need to pull out. I know we have a long meeting tonight. I've looked through. I looked through everything, but this is my last challenge. I don't want to miss this moment, so I won't be cutting out by court.
We all understand and appreciate you letting us know. So, can I have a motion on the changes to the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Make it easy for Jessica. All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. All right. So with that, we're honored tonight to have some guests, and I know we have two more that are hopefully coming, and one more that'll be joining us shortly. It's probably coming from another county, but we'll entertain her when she gets here. So we're honored to have Judge Sams, Sheriff Kilgore, Judge McCray, and Madam Clerk Harper. Thank you for coming tonight and helping participate with us in the discussion of our county current court facility issues and challenges. We started this conversation a number of years ago, and some of you even longer than that. And so we're at a point now where we really just need to have this discussion in an open meeting and kind of increase public's awareness of the challenges that particularly y'all face every day dealing with our current court. So I'm not going to go in any particular order, but I'm going to obviously start with Judge Sams, and we really appreciate you coming down and spending time with us. So Judge Sams, is there anything you'd like to say about the current courthouse? And
There is, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for allowing me to be here and speak on this issue. But I've been practicing. I've been a lawyer since 1979, and I have tried cases and selected juries and courthouses all over the state of Georgia. And I'll say this without reservation, that the Upson County Courthouse is probably the most beautiful courthouse that I've ever worked in. And I commend y'all for your restoration efforts and all you've done to preserve it. But on the other hand, it is not a modern courthouse. And it is the only courthouse in our circuit that only has one main courtroom. It's the only courthouse in our circuit that does not have a jury assembly room, which is becoming more and more essential to selecting juries. For instance, if we have an issue during jury selection that we can't discuss in the jury's presence, I have numerous times had to send 40 to 50 jurors outside while we take up those private matters. That might not seem a big deal, but if it's raining, I assure you it's a big deal to the citizens who've been shuffled outside unnecessarily because of the lack of a jury assembly room. Also, a second courtroom would allow us much more efficiency in dealing with jury trials. But we have a pretty heavy caseload now. But another main issue that concerns me is the lack of a sally port or a tunnel to bring prisoners in from the jail to the courthouse. We're having to, by law, spend more and more efforts to shield the fact that they are incarcerated from potential jurors. And now with the courthouse on the town square with no sally port, we're having to march them through the sheriff's van, making it obvious, even if they're wearing civilian clothes, it's still obvious that they're prisoners. And that subjects us to a risk of having cases overturned on appeal for that reason, if people do that. So those, and also for safety issues. We had an issue a couple of years ago where there was an attempt for an escape with a note that was intercepted by a sheriff in a neighboring county. Without that interception, we may have had a very Brian Nichols situation right here in Upson County, which would be bankruptable, in my opinion. So those are my main concerns and prayers for Upson County, is that we can find a way to produce a justice center that would address those major needs that I just outlined. I think it would serve the community well.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm available for any questions y'all might have.
Okay, we might have some in here in just a second. Sheriff Kilgore.
Thank you. I made a few notes. I hope y'all allow me to read those. I'd like to say thank you for entertaining this prospect of advancing our community in the future. I think that done right, this is something that each of us and each citizen can be proud of as we go forward. It's an excellent opportunity for us to make a lasting impact on our community, something that we will be proud of for many, many years to come. Security of the courts is my responsibility as the sheriff. That's one of the constitutional responsibilities that each sheriff in Georgia shares. And as such, I have some grave concerns about the safety and security of not only our court facility, but of each person that attends court. They could be you a juror or a defendant, a witness, or whomever. And I have some concern for your safety. One of the first things that comes to mind is that as we have court in this community, then we have an inadequate parking situation. We're at the good mercy of First Baptist Church, who graciously allows us to use their parking lot for jury trials when we have jurors present. But that puts jurors in the position of having to park and walk about 3 blocks up to the court facility. As law enforcement comes in, that is a significant issue for us as we approach with inmates. I'll talk about that in just a bit. But we also have jurors, we have defendants, witnesses, family members, whomever is attending court who is parking in a common area, and there are safety concerns as those jurors are approaching their vehicles, dealing with people who may be going on trial or may have been on trial that day. That's certainly not ideal. Our inmate parking is on the courthouse square. Typically, we park on the north side of the square and unload a jail van at that location into an unsecure area. As Judge Sam said, there's no secure parking, there's no sally port, but to put inmates in to move them safely or securely through the facility, through the building. Inmates have to walk. They're shackled for obvious reasons so that they can't escape, so they've got leg irons on. But I went to the courthouse today and I counted just from just how many steps it was from the street up to the holding cell. And an inmate has to get out of a van in an unsecure area, walk past either potential family members or people who may want to harm them, or people who may want to visit with them, or whatever that situation may be. But they walk up 52 steps before they get to a holding cell. There's no elevator in that area. They must physically walk up each one of those steps. There's 6 different flights of stairs in between the street and the holding facility. In order for us to not contaminate the jury panel, as Judge Sams alluded to, often my personnel have to get to the courthouse with inmates at 7 or 7:30 in the morning, well before court starts, so that you don't contaminate that entire panel by allowing them to be seen as they're approaching, and you have an early bird juror who may get there and see somebody in that situation and have a biased opinion. Heightened security situations are very challenging in the existing facility. Judge Sams talked about the situation where the inmate had planned the escape. He had actually drawn a map of where to intercept the car that the deputy would be driving. His instructions in that were to execute the deputy and allow him to escape. He drew that courthouse unsecured area on the west side of the building where everybody knows we park. Because of that, we had to increase security substantially in order to hold those hearings. That meant that we had armed people around the square, on rooftops, in the courthouse, around the courthouse. Those security concerns couldn't really be addressed as effectively as they should have been if we had a facility that allowed us to have a sally port or tunnel or an inmate entry area, and where we could bring an inmate in off the street secure, get them out of the vehicle, out of the public view, and into a secure area to hold court. So there again, not only did we cause concerns for possibly contaminating a jury, but there was a lot of public panic, public concern about the safety of our community as we were in that situation. And thankfully, that worked out without anybody being hurt. Our judges get out of their vehicles on the sidewalk. They park in front of the courthouse in an unsecured area, and we escort them up to the courthouse. That's the best we can do to provide them safety. But what that does is it allows anybody who's interested that wants to try to have a word to bias the judge's opinion before court, or who wants to approach the judge for other ill gain, to have an absolute approach to that judge. That should not be a situation that we're putting them in, and that shouldn't be a position that they're in, frankly. And they need a secure area for security purposes to get into that building. Our building is over 100 years old, as you're well aware. Thank you for maintaining it as well as you have. Thank you for repairing the roof leaks. At least we're dry while we're there now. So I applaud you for that. But it was not designed for today's criminal justice system. That building is not secured unless we have a date of court. It has to be open by law. We're required to keep that facility open. The juvenile court's located there. Judge Coker's office is located in the courthouse. But unfortunately, we don't have the staffing to put somebody at that door each day. Anyone can come in off the street. They can hide a weapon. They can hide contraband. We do have the upstairs blocked off and locked as well as we can. But just a few years ago, I remember we evicted a homeless person out of the outside bathroom on the bottom of the courthouse. He was living in the bathroom. I'm not sure he wasn't living on the 3rd floor at some time by evidence of things that we found up there after we evicted him. But causes us great concern there. The entry design for that building, we've got inadequate screening facilities there with no x-ray machine. We do have a magnetometer where somebody goes through an metal detector, but that is a very slow process. There's no separate entry for court personnel. It's very challenging for us to get people in a rush, get them safely screened into that building, and not to mention that everybody's coming in together, defendants, witnesses, victims. You may well be a victim of a crime and be standing 3 people back from the person that's accused of committing that crime as we go through that process. Our restrooms are not only inadequate in the building, but they're also ripe for hiding contraband. That is constantly a challenge for us. And if they're hosting court on the bottom floor of the courthouse, there's no separate restroom for court facilities. Not even the judges have a separate restroom facility than the defendants or the people that are there for court. Our elevator is inadequate, which space-wise, size-wise, to get people effectively up to the main courtroom, the only courtroom. That results in people having to climb the stairs just as a matter of default. Almost everyone goes up the stairs. And just this week, we had a lady who tumbled coming down and had to be transported to the hospital. That was just yesterday. So our holding facilities, the 52 steps that they have to go to get up the steps are terribly inadequate. They're not very secure. They're expanded metal cage is the door with a plywood wall, and that poses really a lot of problems for us in securing inmates there. There's no way to separate them based on their classification. When someone comes to jail, we classify them based on their severity of crime. That's the way that we house them. When they come to court, that's compromised because we have no way to keep those separate. They're all mixed together. There's no restroom facilities in that cell. They have to get out and use one small and antiquated toilet facility on that floor that is often clogged and causes problems. And believe it or not, inmates will do anything they can to compromise the building while they're there. So we've had them stomp the floor, make things loud, yell, scream, do whatever in that situation. It is just, on days when we have a lot of inmates in the court, it's terribly inadequate. I want to give you a snapshot of what we have. And I'm talking about people in custody. I'm not talking about people who are bonded. There are hundreds of people. I think the clerk can probably tell you how many are bonded and are out awaiting trial. But just in our jail, today's population is I have 118 inmates in jail. I've got 101 males and 17 females. But I want to give you an overview of what we have in that facility, the kind of people and the kind of cases that we're trying in the courts in this community, that this building was not designed for 110 years ago. In our jail today, I've got 8 people that are charged with murder. I've got 9 people that I'm holding on a racketeering case, and there are many more of those out on bond. Those are dangerous people. I've got 11 people of those 118 that are charged with either methamphetamine or cocaine trafficking or distribution. Dangerous people. 5 people that we're holding who have no bond on sexual related cases such as rape, incest, child molestation, or child pornography charges. Serious charges in our small community. We're no different than any other community in this state. But those are the kind of cases that are coming through our court. We've got an obligation to keep our community safe as we deal with these people who are oftentimes dangerous and are in a situation that we're in an inadequate facility. Not to mention that I'm responsible for security in the probate court, also serve the magistrate court on certain occasions. I have a probate judge who's here today. She will tell you she's in a courtroom on the 2nd floor of this building, very similar to this. The difference is she doesn't have an escape door on the back side of that. When she comes into that court facility, she's got to walk through the crowd in a crowded courtroom, people in the hall awaiting their case to be called, and she walks into a room, sits where Mr. Allen is sitting in the upstairs part of this building, and if something goes wrong in that facility, my first obligation is I'm going to get this judge out of that courtroom, remove him to a safe area. The only way we can get her out of there is to take her out the door through the crowd. That's dangerous, folks. We can't have that situation. Our magistrate court, magistrate court is a very heightened emotion court in a lot of cases, in a lot of situations because of the type of case that comes through there. A lot of small claim stuff, a lot of just really emotional things go through that court. And we've got a judge over in a small courtroom in the Drake building, part of this complex, that is often unsecure and just terribly inadequate. Juvenile court, we're holding juvenile court more frequently now than any time in my career. This is my 40th year in law enforcement. I've never seen the frequency of juvenile hearings that we have now. all of those aren't criminal cases or traffic cases through juvenile court. Many of them are family court related things that are very heightened emotion type cases. There's a lot of potential for things to go bad there. So we have to have a security team. I'm glad to provide that service, but it would be very comforting to have that in a facility that had many multiple use rooms where we could divide people out and provide security after they come into a screened area. And I think it would reduce the number of people that we had to provide that security, but it would make everybody so much safer. Not to mention that we had several multi-use courtrooms. We could also use those for arbitration. There's often court mandated that people go to arbitration when they're going through a divorce or a family case, or that people are coming in to give a deposition. In other cases, it may be also heightened emotion. But as you can see, there are a lot of challenges for providing security in today's climate. But in our setting, it is really, we're at a disadvantage for the level of security that we need to provide as a community. Again, I say thank you for hearing what we've got to say. Thank you for hearing our concerns. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to step up and do something that our whole community can be proud of.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm going to skip all over to our district attorney.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Good to see everybody. I'm going to obviously echo some of the concerns that the Chief Judge and the Sheriff have shared with you all. I think we can talk about security at length and not address all of the issues that we have. But in order of to be brief, I know y'all have a busy night ahead. I'm just going to focus on 3 areas. I'm going to first piggyback off of some safety concerns that the Judge and the Sheriff have raised. I want to talk to you about some legal challenges to our courthouse that are very serious. And then finally, I want to end with efficiency. As far as safety is concerned, obviously I'm very concerned about my staff. Today, we are trying a case today in the courthouse, and one of my ADAs was approached by the defendant in the case. And that was when the ADA was coming down the stairs and going into the office. This particular encounter was not hostile, but it certainly could have been. And that cannot happen. It is dangerous. That happened today. Another thing that we have is, and the Sheriff alluded to it, we have victims and we have defendants' families. Obviously, they both have highly charged emotions. The victims of a crime feel that they are here to seek justice for what has been done to them, and the defendant's family wants to see justice done for their family member. We have no way to separate them. There's nowhere for the defense to go. And Mr. English, you know that. When you're trying a case up there, there's one witness room in the very back of the courtroom. Now, the DA's office has an office there, but that's the only place that the defense can go. And that's not right. There's nowhere for them to take their clients. There's nowhere for them to discuss cases. And when they do go back there, they're going to walk past the victim's family. That's concerning. We don't have a witness room. The witness room is our office downstairs. So when you're talking about efficiency, and I'll get to that in a moment, we have to wait for the witness to come all the way up. And that might not sound like a lot, but when you have 11 witnesses, you're extending the trial a pretty good bit. I do want to say one thing. I know that you all addressed the Cameron Jones matter. We were so concerned about security, gentlemen, and Ms. Jones, that we were going to have to try that case in another courtroom. That trial would have had to be moved, and that's an expense. It's an expense that the taxpayers would have had to bear. We were talking about busing jurors back and forth. The case fled, but that's something of a consideration. If we have another Cameron Jones, which I assure you we will, we cannot try it safely in the courthouse that we have now. Sheriff, brilliant point about jurors and a shackled inmate. If I could move to legal challenges. That is so serious that if a juror sees a shackled inmate just walking into the courthouse, it's a mistrial. We're done. We'd have to try the case all over again. So that's paying, jurors to come back in, pick another jury, start the trial. We could be at deliberations, and that juror see an inmate shackled, and we're done. There's nothing that I could do to save the trial at that point. It's a mistrial. We had a case go to the Supreme Court, and that's White versus the state. It was a murder case that was tried here. And the legal challenge was that the acoustics were so bad in the courthouse that the defendant essentially was not present at that trial because the defendant could not hear. We were smacked down by the Supreme Court of Georgia, who basically said, yes, the acoustics are bad, but, and it was, they tried to address it in court, the judge at the time tried to get microphones and everything else, still the defendant couldn't hear. They upheld the conviction, but in a footnote they said, if this courthouse does not approve its acoustics or build another courthouse, you will lose a murder case. Pretty much is what they said. Now, we have tried and tried everything that we could do to improve the acoustics in that courthouse. There are microphones everywhere, but in trying that jury trial today, it is obvious that that is still a significant problem. We can't hear jurors during jury selection. I've never been accused of being a quiet woman, okay? But if I move away from a microphone, you can hear the difference. It's hard to hear me. So if you have a more soft-spoken attorney, such as the defense attorney today, it becomes a big problem. So those are the main legal challenges that I see that we might have in the future, we've had in the past, we might have in the future. I want to talk to y'all about, finally, efficiency. I think, Judge, before I walked in, you mentioned that we only have, obviously, one courtroom that we can track cases in. It's the only, Pike County and this county. Pike County is a different story. Here, we don't have a jury assembly room. So what that looks like is when we come in for trial, let's say that we have a calendar like we did this time with 100, almost 200 people on it, right? It's huge because of COVID. We can't plead cases in the morning because the jurors are out there in the jury assembly room. So if Mr. English had a client that had a change of heart that day and came in and said, I want to plead guilty, well, the jurors are sitting there. You don't have another case that you can call. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of everybody's time. That's a waste of everybody's money. We've had that happen on several occasions. Another efficiency issue is that we are transporting files from this building here to the courthouse. We have to transport and the clerk has to transport. Now, not only is that a logistics issue, it becomes a security issue for people's personal information. That's their GCIC, which is protected. The clerk has personal information that's protected. So those files are extremely vulnerable when we're transporting them from our respective offices to the courthouse. And then when we're in the courthouse, of course, they have to be transported to the courtroom. That's the deficiency issue. The biggest one that I want to leave you all with is for my boards of commissioners across the circuit. I've been asked about the backlog. What are we doing about the backlog? And in those other courthouses, namely Fayette and Spalding, where we have multiple courtrooms, we're bringing in multiple judges. We're trying as many cases as we need to try. Here we can't do that, y'all. It's one at a time. We are looking at a backlog that I estimate anywhere from 5 to 10 years at one trial at a time because of COVID, and we have not had trials there since January of 2020. Again, I cannot press that upon you enough. I estimate that at best we get through this backlog in 5 years, and that's with us trying multiple cases a year, which we do anyway, 5 to 10 years. That's how big our caseload has gotten. And if y'all recall when I presented last year to y'all, I mean, we're at 22%, 23%. We're hanging in there right now with Fayette County. Now, we do have misdemeanors, but those have to have a trial too. And we've got one place to try them. They have 4 courtrooms dedicated. Is it state court and superior judge? Is it 4 courtrooms? 4 courtrooms. Same volume. We have 1. That has to change. I am happy to answer any questions. I won't take up any more of your time. My staff did want to also mention the sharing restrooms thing. That is very uncomfortable for them when they encounter a defendant's family at the sink. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I want to echo that sentiment. I just want to make sure I hit all of the issues that I had. It looks like I have. Again, Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, we'll stay in the Superior Court world, and Ms. Harper.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues here that we do appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to kind of plead our case for the community. We are speaking, I hope everybody understands, although we've been doing this for many years and it's dear to our hearts, we're actually speaking on behalf of the community. We're doing this for the community, for Upson County. We're doing this so that the citizens of Upson County are getting a secure and a legal due process, and we are facing many challenges doing that with the facility that we have. I've been doing this for 32 years myself, so I can tell you that I love our courthouse, just like Judge Sam said. It is a beautiful courthouse. I have a lot of emotional and sentimental attachment to it. I'm sure Ms. Broder and Mr. English do as well. We've been doing this for a very long time, as the sheriff has too. We grew up in this community, and we love our courthouse. It's our square. That's what our square represents. However, if you've ever been called for jury duty, I don't know if anybody in this room has ever been called for jury duty, it is quite a challenge. We do not have a jury assembly room, as they have spoken about. You've got, at times we can have 100, 150 jurors in the courtroom pre-COVID. We would have 150 jurors in the courtroom. We did have an incident one time where we were trying to draw a jury, a defendant comes in, wants to plead, and we didn't catch it in time. And so the defendant wanted to plea. Jurors were sitting out there, they started taking the plea, realized the jurors were out there, then the defendant decided not to plead, but we couldn't do the trial because the jury room was tainted. So that's another cost to the community. We had to pull more jurors, we had to bring them in, so you've got an added cost there. So I could talk about this all day. I could talk about it all night because we've talked about it several times. And this is not the first time I've been in here too to talk to you guys about the need for a new court facility. We've all worked very well together to try to do the best we can to make sure that everybody's secure, to make sure that we are given a fair trial, that the jurors are being protected. Just today, Donna McCart, who's our juvenile court clerk, emailed me because we're trying to schedule, we've got the one courtroom, and we're trying to schedule how they're going to handle juvenile court when we're going to be upstairs for pretty much the next 6 weeks or so, off and on, and it's overlapping. If you've ever been in the courthouse, and I wish you would come up there on a day where we've got child support in one room, we've got court going on in the main courtroom with superior court, we've got juvenile court, the grand jury room, talking about a security risk. I mean, you've got 200 people up there sometimes in and out. The bailiffs are doing the best they can, the deputies are doing the best they can to keep everybody kind of herded in the right direction. But it's a security risk, and it's frustrating to the people who are having to use the courtroom. I mean, imagine if you've never had to deal with the courts and you come there and you're confused and you're scared and you don't know what you're doing, it's overwhelming. And so I think it's a duty for us as elected officials elected by this community to protect them and to give them the best that we can give them. I think Upton County should take pride and reverence in our court system and provide that facility where it echoes that, where it shows that we are taking pride in our justice system. And I'm here to bring any kind of questions that you have.
Okay. And I know you got to leave. You want to step out now?
Yeah, go ahead, so I won't interrupt anybody.
Yes, ma'am.
Got a security risk right here. Might be a fire.
Enjoy it. Okay. And then, so finally, Judge McCray, and you're in a unique position to where you can also talk about some of the challenges, because a lot of your challenges are the same challenges that our magistrate judge has as well.
Yeah, I'm going to speak about that a little bit. Just like everybody else said, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to everybody about the situation. I don't want to repeat everything that was said. I agree with what everybody else is saying here that we have some serious issues that we need to deal with here in Upton County when it comes to court services. The sheriff already spoke about security, but because I'm in this building, it's a little different than what they're dealing with at the courthouse. It's the same but different, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Magistrate court and the probate court are both housed in these two buildings here, so we're not in the courthouse. When we have court, we have our own courtrooms. My courtroom is the same size as this one, 25 seats. The magistrate court is a little bit smaller than mine. I don't know how many spaces she has for people, but it's smaller than what I have. It's not uncommon for me to have 100 people on the traffic calendar twice a month. And And when I do opening statements, everybody has to have their, they all have to have their opening statements given to them, so they know what the process is. So I heard everybody in the room at the same time. Of course, this is pre-COVID. Heard everybody in the room, and that's a major security issue, because again, like the sheriff said, I don't come in until everybody's in. So I have to come through that door to the bench, and there's nowhere for me to go. We did have an incident one time that we had a irate defendant that just did not want to work things out at all. And they're trying to get me out of the courtroom because it got bad. There was a tussle. That's an understatement. There was nowhere for me to go. There was people in the front row, and literally they're standing where that table is right there. So there's people on the front row here sitting, and there's this tussle going on. There's nowhere for anybody to go. There's no security at all. There's not a bar in my courtroom like there is in the Superior Courtroom, where there's a space or a division. And there's no division. So that was the situation. In our buildings, these two buildings here, we don't have security present on a regular basis. The only time I have security is when we have traffic court. And the sheriff does an awesome job of giving me as much security as I need to have. But I have probate hearings quite often, and when you talk about heated situations, traffic's bad enough as it is. You know, I only handle misdemeanor cases, so the most that I'm going to do is send somebody to jail, which is a problem in itself for the defendant, but I can suspend their license. But when it comes to probate matters, it's not uncommon for me to hear cases with $500,000 at stake. When you start talking about that kind of money, people get upset. And I've had a situation, and I can't predict how the family members are going to act in a probate case. So if I have an idea that something might happen, I'll request the sheriff to send security for me for that hearing, but I don't always do that. It just depends. So I've had it where I've had heated family members and no security. And I know that magistrate court has had the same. So we do have those heated issues. I have had somebody escape out the second floor bathroom window during court. They had a warrant and had to go to the bathroom. Remember those excuses we were talking about, that the defendants will come up with all kinds of them. But it was a female, and all we had is a male deputy, so he let her in the bathroom to go to the restroom, and out the second floor window she went and took off. And we didn't find her because she had a broken ankle, but still. I personally have been threatened in my office by an individual that was there. She didn't have really any business to be there. It was a years ago prior case, and she was irate about something. So she came to the office. If we had security in the building, that probably wouldn't have happened because she would have known security was there. So she was ultimately charged with the threats that she threatened my life. And I was right there. So she was charged, convicted, and there's a restraining order for her to stay away from me, my family, and so on. Anyway, so that probably would not have happened if we had security. Talk about size of the courtroom. Holding rooms, I don't have a holding room option. When we have when we have folks come from the jail that have cases in my court, we usually sit them on the front row with everybody else. So they're sitting there with their shackles and everything right there in the front row. There's nowhere in this building to keep somebody. So they're all right there. And that's dangerous for them, for the other folks that are in the courtroom, for my staff. It's dangerous for everybody. There has been contraband issues because they come to my courtroom, and it's easy for them to hide stuff and for them to find things. So, when it comes to my office space, there's no room. This building is small. I mean, I would invite anybody who would like to come and tour the offices to see the size of our facilities. There's no room for anything. I'm maxed out, beyond maxed out. Again, for court, we have no privacy for distraught customers or anything like that. If I have to sequester witnesses, which I've had to do on several occasions, I have a records room. I can send them to the records room. I can send them into my office to sit in the lobby. But if I have these windows outside of my courtroom, just like y'all do right here, I can't send them out in the hall because they can hear everything that's going on. So there's no witness sequestration at all. It's hard. Parking, y'all spoke about parking lots. If I have a big calendar, which is quite often, there's nowhere. I mean, we have them parking across the street and down the road, and I've had them park on the square and walk over because there's no space. And in the parking lot where the gas station is right here, there's just no space. Let's see. Our storage room, I'm required by law to keep everything that happens in probate in the vicinity of the probate court. I have records back to 1825. So that's a lot of records, a lot of probate matter. And I'm just about busting at the seams up there. And it's also required by law that the probate court vault is fireproof. There's no way to make that room fireproof up there because this building can't support that. The weight of that and everything, it wouldn't be cost effective. So if something was to happen in this building, every estate, will, marriage record, firearms record, everything would be gone. Because the old records aren't in the system, so they'd be gone. Let's see. So to sum it up, we really need a safe court facility for our defendants, for our citizens, for our court staff, something that's secure and more efficient. And something that's these buildings, when they first retrofitted for what we have now, they were made for what we needed at the time, not for future use. So at this point now, we are just busting out of these buildings, and I think we need something that's more efficient for our courts and more designed for today's capacity. And that's it, and I'm going to be here if anybody has any questions.
Okay. I know we also got a letter from Judge Ott in juvenile court, and it's pretty much the same type stuff, especially when juvenile court's trying to go on at the same time. You've got other functions trying to go on at the same time. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, I think you guys y'all have done a tremendous job.
With the chair, yield 2 minutes
Absolutely.
to the manager.
Absolutely.
I don't want to belabor the point because I appreciate and I know and have come to understand very vividly what they say is absolutely true because I see it every day like they see it. But it's the manager's job to look after the affairs of the Board of Commissioners, and while these activities are going on, say in the district attorney's office, the probate court, the magistrate court, and in municipal court, because municipal court is actually held in this room. At that same time, your staff is trying to conduct business with the general public, and the general public will be on this campus for a number of things, including to go to the senior center, to visit our economic development office, to go to the extension office, even just to do soil samples, to visit Doug's office, planning, building, code enforcement, zoning, to come to y'all's office, to come to the commission office and do business, come to county finance, facilities management. All of those things are located and are coexisting with the 4 court functions that I just mentioned. Not to mention, all the functions of City Hall are also in this building, and conveniently located next door is our county pre-K program. So while all the activities that the judges and our esteemed prosecutor mentioned, all these activities are having to happen at the same time. So whether that's them having to get through this out to that facility or conducting in court actually in this facility, it's a challenge for the Board of Commissioners staff as much as it is anyone. And it's a lot of commingling of functions that don't need to be commingled. And I think that what I hear from our elected folks out there is that a dedicated court facility is what's in order. And I know that's been a priority of the board since I came on board as a member of the team. We look forward to, as your staff, providing you a lot of options on how to get that accomplished.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to make mention that the judges, the sheriff, and the DA have painted a very gloomy picture of our courtroom facility, and we are in need of updates, upgrades, and we can't afford to completely continue to ignore the needs of the elected people that they're here to help protect us.
I had the opportunity to sit down with these folks last week to kind of figure out how to present this, and one of the things that we talked about doing was doing some sort public awareness campaign, a video. Well, guess what? You just did the video, in my opinion. I don't know how you could articulate the need any better than what you have. And it's like, you know, the county manager said, all these other things that coexist while we're trying to do some of the things that we're trying to do and deal with some of the people that, you know, like the sheriff highlighted that are up here. You know, so do y'all have any final thoughts? I mean, you know, this is a very lengthy process. It's been a very lengthy process. You know, if we knew what we wanted to build and we knew where we were going to do it, I mean, it's still construction guy. 2 years from the time you break ground. So, you know, I mentioned that to say, you know, if there's anything that we can do to mitigate some of the situations that you're seeing now, I mean, I don't know if, you know, open to suggestions, you know, temporary restroom facilities up on the courthouse square that folks could use, or, you know, I know we've talked about, you know, all your records, you know, are there temporary solutions out there? Because again, I mean, we're looking at several years to get this done, and you know, you know, is there a way to do a temporary courtroom? Maybe we need to look at, you know, we have the courthouse annex, you know, maybe relocating some functions. I mean, we need to, if we're, you know, we're looking at 5 to 10 years backlog, we've got to do something, not only with moving forward with a court facility to take care of, to bring us to 2021 and beyond, but what are we going to do to take care of what we got to do today? So, I mean, we're open to anything. I know we don't have those answers now, but if you think of anything, you know, now's a good time to try to figure that out.
One comment, I think that may justify kind of a facility planning session with some of these, you know, people that utilize this courtroom. Maybe that's the takeaway from today, is to have a small working session to come up with some facility planning where we can maybe accomplish some of those things in the time being. Because obviously, you know, it's safety is the #1 issue, it sounds like, and I think we're all aware of that. And I think that could be something we jump on.
So I have one question for the group. Would you ever envision a way to, you know the question I'm going to ask you, would you ever envision a way to update, expand, modernize our existing court facility to be able to handle this? And for those of you that can't see, I've seen a lot of negative head shakes. I mean,
unfortunately, no. I mean, I echo the courthouse. You know, it just represents so much about Thomaston and Upson County, and it's beautiful. Like everybody said, it's beautiful. But when I have jurors out there, and just yesterday, I have to say that to them. I am so sorry. Our courthouse is beautiful, but I know that a lot of you can't hear what I'm saying right now. I mean, I had to say it to the jurors yesterday. So I'm apologizing to the public for the courthouse, and we don't want that. We don't, like Madam Clerk said, we want to be proud of it. But I just want you to know, like, this is I don't see us fixing it. We've tried to fix it every way that we know. I wish y'all could see what the clerk and the judges have done with regards to technology. They've done everything that they can do. It's just not functioning.
Sure.
I personally think that any attempt to modernize it would be unsuccessful with the layout there. Plus, it would absolutely destroy the historical nature of the courthouse. Absolutely destroy it.
And a point to that, I mean, just because we're pursuing a new court function doesn't mean that the courthouse is going away. I mean, we've already brainstormed other ideas that could go in the courthouse. So we think there's a better function moving forward to put in there. So it's not to say, hey, we're going to bulldoze it down and move forward. That's not the case at all.
And we're you know, obviously, you know, we're wrapping up a $1.5 million give or take project on the roof. There's some improvements that we're going to have to do on the inside now that we've stopped the water intrusion issues. We talked at our last meeting about moving forward with updates to the the landscaping out there, you know, the magnolias are huge, but that also presents a security issue for the sheriff and everything else. So the courthouse is it's our iconic community center, and I think this board is on board with making sure that it remains that way and it has a viable function going forward.
Well, and that's what I was going to kind of elaborate a little bit on. We had a clerks conference 2 weeks ago, so I was with 159 of the clerks, give or take, and we are actually in the minority. There's very few courthouse square that are actually being utilized for courthouse purposes for that. And if you talk to some of these other counties, and you get some really good ideas of what kind of uses you can do with the existing courthouses, the existing courthouse that we have. There's so many other things that we could do with that would be actually very beneficial to the community. Historic, not just the historical value of it, but the community value of it, because there's events that could be held there, and businesses that could actually be in that building. So I think if you could maybe talk to other counties that are comparable to our size and see what they've done with their existing courthouse, I think you get a good idea about how we can still preserve our courthouse and maintain the integrity of what it was built for, but still have our courthouse facility that would be functional and efficient for what we need it to be for.
Let me say something.
Yes, sir.
I held out to the last. All right, so there's been a lot of can kicking in this county for many, many years. That courthouse roof didn't start leaking last year, and they keep kicking the stupid can down the road. Well, now's the time to pick up the can and build a new courthouse, because it's been kicked down the road just as far as the roof. And it's time we did something different. We need to come in to the 21st century and get out of 1951. Where, like you said, the courthouse was built for its purpose in 1908. There wasn't near as many people living here, and there wasn't near as many bad people coming through town either. So it's time that this board does what it's got to do.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. That, I think that all of us have a responsibility to the taxpayers and to the community. And I think if you look back on 20 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation if the people who were elected then had been good stewards and had really, it's not a popular topic. And we went to Winder, Georgia, we toured that courthouse, and they even said, that most of the people there are not even elected anymore. But they have a functional, secure, safe place to conduct their business for the courts. So yes, it's not something that's going to be very popular until we can get out there, like Ms. Broder had mentioned too, about us, creating a courthouse committee. I forgot what you called it, but we could do that and educate the public on how important this project is and how it is being responsible, being good stewards of the county's resources.
Yep, I agree. Okay. Well, it went a little longer than I thought it would, but it's obviously a very important issue. And anyway, so stay tuned.
Thank
All
you
right.
all.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Tell everybody to watch YouTube.
You don't have to leave. There's more fun stuff to do here. I know it's been a long day for a lot of us.
The rest of it is free. I gotta write a closing argument.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay. And everybody, I appreciate your allowing us to go ahead and manipulate the schedule a little bit to get them in and out of here. So, moving along, next on the agenda are public hearings. So first is the public hearing for SPX 2021-02, applicants Matthew and Mark Mercer of Rock, Georgia, requesting an AR special exemption for a temporary camper use at a residence. Mr. Curry, well, I'm sorry. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Let's see. Towers. Okay. So, can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Public hearing is now open. We have no one signed up for comments at that public hearing. So with that, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? I'm sorry I didn't do that the first time. Okay, so the public hearing is now closed. Mr. Courier?
Yes, sir. This is Mark and Matthew Mercer, a father and son team, who want to renovate a home 1517 East Adams Road, Adams Ferry Road. So they're asking for a temporary residential RV use to live there. It's certainly a type of case that you're used to having under these construction. This is just a renovation rather than brand new construction. We did have some delay in the original application. We were working with them to iron out the permitting, or at least the inspection issues with the sewer and the well, and those problems were worked out. We have issued a building permit, which is part of the application process and required to be done. This is 6.5 acres. We have an upside and a downside, or an upland and a lower area. It's actually split zoning, R5 down near the river, and AR where the house is. This is not a desirable thing. We're just making this observation right now. It's not really critical in terms of the case itself. The uses in the area are predominantly zoned AR and R5. We have general review standards that are required by the state as well as by our own ordinances that must be used to analyze each case. I've given you a brief staff analysis using those standards. I don't believe this is contrary to the purpose of the ordinance. Obviously, this is one of the longest lived special exception provisions we have in the zoning ordinance, is to allow temporary use of an RV when there's at least new construction. It is unique that this is a renovation, but it's the same idea. And you do set the limit about how long that can happen, so you have some control at the length. I don't think in this case the community considers this RV detrimental. I'm told by our code enforcement officer, who was the first one who brought this to the department through a complaint, that now that the residents in the area understand that the RV is there to then renovate the home, they're very happy that they're going to be renovating a house that's been an eyesore in that community for a number of years. Also, hopefully they're not going to become a nuisance in terms of what happens in the RV, but obviously any place where people live, that can happen, but it's not necessarily the nature of having temporary RV housing there while a building is being renovated. There are special development standards. These are basically requirements that happen automatically. There's a list of conditions that are mandatory. A lot of these things just have to happen over time, or they happen as part of the permit process. So some of these things are basically already accomplished. Or they have to be just in the monitoring of the project. Staff recommends approval with a number of reasons. This is a temporary use only, it's not permanent, and this is a traditional request that we review. The only unique aspect, as I said, is that this is a renovation, not new construction. The Planning Commission held their hearing on this April 12th. They also recommended approval with a 5-0 vote. There are traditional conditions that we impose in addition to the ones that are part of the ordinance. In this case, they recommended a maximum of 12-month period basically from approval, at which time the RV would have to be removed no later than whether construction was completed or not. And then the rest of these are fairly ordinance-oriented, CAN type of requirements. You can't have more than one of these. You have to be using the water and sewer that's on site, not dumping on the land, etc. This is an aerial to orient you. Up is north, and you can see that the river is there. This is the house way up here. There is some floodplain. This is all within the floodplain, and there's a little corner of the property here in the floodplain, but the house is well out of the floodplain. The RVs are currently down in this area. There's a photo of the house from the lower portion of the parcel. Backside with the dumpster, which currently has a little bit more in it than it did at that time when I took the photo. And this is the RV as it sat back in February when I took the original picture, but it doesn't look much different today. That concludes my staff report, Mr. Chair.
So the RV's been there since February?
Yes, sir. Started out as a code violation.
Okay. Okay. So gentlemen, you have the staff's recommendation for approval with those conditions. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we go ahead and follow the lead of the Planning and Zoning Board and approve it with the conditions they recommended.
We have a motion for approval with the conditions set forth by the Planning Commission. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, motion's made, second. Any more discussion? Hearing no discussion, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. A letter will be sent to them with those conditions, and they've got 12 months.
12 months today.
Okay. Next is public hearing for SPX 2021-03. Applicant Timothy J. Neeson of Salemburg, North Carolina, represented by Angela Hancock of Thomaston. Mr. Neeson's requesting AR special exception for a special event facility use at 33 Hickman Road, 91.7 acre parcel. So is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so we'll open a public hearing. We do have 3 people. So when I call your name, if you would, please stand, state your name and your address for the record, and you have 5 minutes to say whatever you want to say regarding this. So, Angela Hancock.
My name is Angela Hitchcock.
I'm sorry, Hitchcock, I'm sorry.
I don't know, my handwriting is a little bit. I live at 33 Hickman Fork Road, Thomaston, Georgia. I'm here on behalf of my father. Me and my husband and my father chose Thomaston because of the area and the community that has. We wanted to purchase some land, not only for him to retire on, but for us to grow kind of in the community and create a small venue site. I know in the staff report and the stipulations, they allowed us to go up to 300. My dream is just to have a place where a bride can have a small intimate wedding, no more than 150 people, and then to be able to create kind of lasting memories for brides to be able to enjoy. Sorry. That's how I don't know if I need to bring up the concerns. This is my first time ever doing anything like this, so I'm new to this. I know at the last one there was a lot more concerns about the traffic that we would create in the community, and we wanted to bring to this to lay out that we are more than willing to alleviate traffic by having Google reroute traffic to avoid using 74 as an entrance, and use Old Alabama and Thurston. South Old Alabama. To the South Collins, to then make a right entrance into our land versus a left entrance to alleviate traffic and for safety. So I know that was one of the biggest ones at the last meeting. That was kind of our takeaway on that. That's all I have to say. I don't know if you want to say anything. Thank you.
So next is Brent Hitchcock.
Brent Hitchcock. I also live at 33 Hickman Ford Road. I can't think of anything else to say other than what my wife has already stated. We're hopeful for an opportunity to build a life and a business and somewhere for the community to have somewhere to go to, start their lives and have a better life.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you. And then next, and I'm having a hard time, Brent.
Wiggins.
Say your name again, sir?
Brent Wiggins, sir.
Mr. Wiggins. Okay.
Neighbor, friend, just here to support good people, good intentions, hard working, good vision, and I'd just like to see it be successful. I think it'd be good for the community.
All right,
That's all.
thank you. There are no one else signed up. So is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. So the hearing is closed. Mr. Courier?
Yes, sir. As you heard, Mr. Neeson is Ms. Hitchcock's father, and he's, I believe, technically the owner of the property, and they're proposing what in your ordinances are called an indoor-outdoor special event venue. This is the third one of these. We've done 2 previous ones for this sort of special event venue, and so we definitely have a track record and some traditional conditions to recommend on this one. This one would be probably the smaller of the venues of the other 2. There's a 3-year plan. Included in that plan is a 600 square foot pavilion, restrooms, and an altar, and then eventually a 1,500 square foot barn at a later phase. Again, the zoning ordinance states, and this is in the list of special exceptions allowed in the AR, indoor and outdoor special event venues. This is approximately 92 acres on Crest Highway, Old Alabama Road, Collins School Road. Sheila Circle is to the west. Obviously, they don't touch that road, but that is a neighborhood that's over to that side of the property. It does not lie within a special flood area. Land uses in the area, the zoning is generally AR with just a little bit of C2, and R5 is Sheila Circle, that manufactured home neighborhood. Again, we have the general review standards required by your own ordinance as well as state law. Again, we certainly don't think this is contrary to the purpose. You approved 2 of these before, different locations, different circumstances, but the same sort of use. Detrimental to the adjacent properties or the general neighborhood. Obviously, this is a location where special events, which can have a lot of things happen, noise, trash, traffic, etc. So that's a concern about how it's going to be administered, how it's going to be maintained. There was a specific concern by Commissioner Ellington, and so I looked into the other 2 venues. He thought that this was kind of close to the nearest neighbor. So you'll see these are approximate numbers. Obviously, they're not tightly measured. I used the measuring tool on the tax assessor's website. This location would be approximately 500 feet from the nearest neighbor's house. The Callaway venue over on Mulberry is approximately 580. I think you might remember that site where there's a house across the lake. Clear cut, there's no trees there, so it's a straight shot whether it's visual or noise. And then the Harper venue, the nearest neighbor is 366 to Old Alabama Road, which is Mr. Hudson, and that's 984 feet. So this is certainly the closest one to the neighbor, but relative to these Callaway, not much closer, and there's a lot more buffer here. There's a lot of trees, as you'll see in the staff report, and also in the aerial that I'll show you here during the presentation. In terms of nuisances and hazards, any use can be that, just a matter of whether it's maintained and how it's controlled. Obviously, there are remedies if things become a nuisance or a hazard. Hopefully this would not become one of those. The same thing with the impacts. You all can have the noise, the traffic, the litter, general safety concerns. You heard addressed earlier that there was, the only concern that the Planning Commission had was the access, and we'll show you that, and you can see that in the aerial photograph. They thought that maybe traffic might back up onto Crest Highway. The applicants did meet with the road department, and they basically came up with a satisfactory distance and location for the driveway there. And you've already heard them that they would be willing to direct anybody coming to come along from a southerly approach rather than from the north and Crest Highway. There is one concern, and this is one of the conditions addresses this, is that your ordinance only allows one principal structure per lot. Right now you have a house. There are some smaller barns, sheds, things like that, including one that's already up for permit for use for the family, not really for the business. And so the concern was, especially when that larger barn was going to be built, that we would have more than one principal lot or use on the lot. And there is a condition fashioned to address that issue. They have the opportunity to either address it currently or basically by requiring division of the property into two, separating the house lot out. That was not what the Planning Commission chose in their conditions. Staff recommends approval. I think there are a number of reasons for that, including that they have been consistent with the required guidelines, or they will have to be. That's going to be imposed. We have an established set of conditions of approval based on the other two that would be imposed on this use. They certainly have an adequate amount of property in excess. They only have to have 5 acres, and they've got far more than that. And again, approval can be revoked if there's too much of a violation of nuisance standards, etc. You can certainly revoke approval. The Planning Commission also recommended approval at their April 12th meeting by a 5-0 vote. There are significant conditions. Now, these conditions are not new to this type of use, very traditional. There was concern that they were talking about a smaller area, so we make it clear here that the minimum is 5 acres. So that entire parcel, 92 acres, at a minimum of 500 has to be considered to be the facility itself. We limit the type of uses there, no concerts, festivals, motorized activities. This is identical to what was imposed on the other ones. The Planning Commission, even though the applicant was willing to go down to 150 and allow that to be conditioned, the Planning Commission did debate that issue, discuss it, and they just felt for consistency's sake, since the other two facilities were allowed to have 300, even though this applicant only is asking for 150, they would be uniform across the board, and their recommendation is to stay with the same 300, which matches identically the other two facilities. Also the same as the parking issue, that it's got to be on site, can't be out on the county roads, and that any amplified sound, music, etc. would have to be shut down by 10 p.m. Going forward, the concern about the traffic control, that because this is, Hickman Fork is the smallest side of this property, the property coming off that major access point could back up off Hickman Fork onto Crest Highway. But again, with their meetings twice with the road department and talking with them and working out the solution, the road department was satisfied and the Planning Commission was satisfied that with the design. You will see on the dais you have a colored copy. That was their redesign or a closer look at the access point. You're going to see that the copy that's was in your tablet report and is not real good. So hopefully that's a lot clearer to see what the approach would be or where the access would be. And of course there are normal things. The occupation tax has to be paid. And it has been your tradition to limit this approval for special exceptions to the applicants, and it's not an inheritable special exception. I guess time will tell whether that's something you like or not, but that's consistent with what you did with the other two similar locations. This is the aerial photograph of the area of the lot. You can see that there's not a lot of development on it now. And the drawing. Okay. Hopefully you've got something better than I've got, but let's see, I can sort of pinpoint it. The venue is sort of, you'll see on this north side, right in here, is where they're going to have the pavilions and the altar and some of the other facilities. So this is the location. You can see that the nearest neighbor is right over here in a direct line. So that's approximately 500 feet from the location footprint that they have here and the neighbor's house, closest neighbor's house. Obviously you got Sheila Circle to the west. And I guess that didn't scan too well in my presentation. This is the original design for it, where the facilities would go. Again, right now that larger barn is something that will be down the road and not immediately built. I think that only the pavilion that you see here in these smaller facilities are what they're planning early on. And there's the graphic that you've got that shows better in the paper version that you've got. This shows where the access would be. Hickman Fork is down here. It's not what they agreed to. It wouldn't be too close to Crest Highway, but the current driveway you can see is right here. It goes pretty much in the front of their house, And so it would be moved slightly west near Crest Highway, but not too close. I'm sorry, north, I guess that would be. And the photographs, there's the house with some outbuildings. This is the area where you can see where Mr. Hitchcock is walking. This is the general area where the facility would be, and that's the road that leads back to the house. So you're looking from the special venue site back towards Hickman Fork. Again, sort of the area. They've told me that they want to limit the number of trees, and the few that they take out, they'll replace. Again, the area, they have that pond that you saw in the aerial, so this would front on the pond. This was sort of a cleared area. They had taken, I think they said, 1 or 2 trees out and had grubbed it a little bit. So that's generally right where the site would be. You can see the soil there. And this is a little further down from the lake and looking back towards the venue site. That concludes my staff report. Oh, we do have some driveway photos. I'm sorry to see where the house is. They're going to move probably somewhere in here is where the driveway would be. So you can see there's not much distance between Crest Highway and there where the entrance would be. And if you've got a lot of your attendees showing up at once, that was the road department's concern and the planning commission's concern. And they're saying they could also conduct traffic around the backside. Here's looking from Crest Highway. You can see the current driveway where it is on the property and how relatively close that looks anyway. There's the house. You can see the current driveway goes right in front of the house. That driveway would be moved a little bit to the left. And these trees sort of indicate that the driveway would probably be somewhere in the vicinity of these trees. And there's the road that goes back to the venue. And then looking back toward Crest Highway. I'm sorry, that was the end, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. So you have the staff recommendation for approval and the planning commission's recommendation for approval with those, this will be about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 conditions. Is there a motion?
Can I ask a question to Doug before we make a motion?
Sure.
Chairman?
Sure.
Was there any, we didn't have anybody in opposition to it tonight. Did y'all have any trouble?
No, we had 5 or 6 people just asking what it was about, but once they found out, they didn't express concerns and nobody came to the public hearing or wrote any comments positively or negatively.
Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve with all the exceptions that the planning and zoning and
Conditions.
conditions. Yep, what did I say?
Exceptions.
Oh, exceptions. Excuse me.
And I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve this request with the 12 conditions presented by the planning commission. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. So I just want to ask, what brought you here? I take it you're not from here?
Oh, no, sir. Actually, my father, I was in the military, and we lived in Fayetteville for a while, and he since moved away, and everything just keeps bringing our family back to Georgia. I moved away. I went to the Air Force. Lived in Griffin, lived in Bethlehem. My dad's moved, and since then my mom passed away, and he just wanted to bring the family back to Georgia.
Well, it's a beautiful piece of property.
It is,
Pictures.
yes, and we fell in love with it. I actually talked to my dad into buying it. He didn't want to buy it.
Most young ladies are able to talk to their dads into doing lots of so we're welcome. And I just kind of got a feeling there was a little military thing there.
Yes.
All right. Well, good luck. Okay. Next on the agenda is SPX 2021-04 is applicant TBT1 LLC, Delaware Corporation, doing business as Tower Ventures out of Memphis, Tennessee. Requested an AR special exception for replacement of a lattice-style wireless telecommunications tower 250-foot tower, replaced a 170-foot guided tower at 679 Day Road. Let's see. Is there a motion to open the hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Hearing's open. I have one here to speak. Lou.
Councilman.
Okay, are you representing the?
Yes, I work for Tower Ventures.
Okay.
We are a regional cell tower development and real estate company. We're headquartered in Memphis. We own approximately 400 cell towers and other wireless properties in the U.S. We have about 12 here in Georgia. We're proposing to do what the industry calls a swap and drop, or replacement of the existing 170-foot tower we own up there with a 250-foot self-support tower. Would be designed to support cellular communications and wireless data services. Although AT&T is the anchor tenant and has provided data showing the need for the tower, we will design the tower to accommodate multiple carrier tenants for a total of 3 tenants. And just so everybody knows, there is going to be a 4th wireless carrier with the Sprint and T-Mobile merger. Dish Network is going to be a nationwide wireless carrier, and they're also interested. I don't have anything signed with them, but they are taking a look at the tower. We are also the property owners up there on Day Road on the hill. The tower equipment will be placed in a compound area of 56 feet by 56 feet. We'll enclose it with a 6-foot wooden fence, or excuse me, chain link fence, and will conceal the equipment. The compound gates will also be chain link. We will do landscaping per the Upson County cell tower ordinance. The property that we own up there is small. In the unlikely event of a tower failure or collapse, the tower will be engineered to fall within the property boundaries of the TVT lot. In short, the replacement tower will not fall across any property lines, and we submitted what we call a fall or failure letter from an engineer stating that. There is a need for improved cellular coverage in this area of Upson County. AT&T has provided a letter of need and propagation maps clearly showing the lack of existing coverage. These maps demonstrate the need for a new tower. The tower will not only provide better cellular coverage and faster data speeds, the tower will greatly enhance the county's E911 emergency services network. At this time, we've also told the Sheriff's Department, I spoke to the gentleman here earlier, that we will allow the Sheriff's Department to erect antennas on the tower at no charge to the county. Be happy to do it. We appreciate your consideration of this application, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And it is nice to be back in a public forum. This is my first one since January.
Ditto. Okay, no one else signed up for the public hearing, so with that, motion to close the hearing. So moved. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Public hearing is closed. So, Mr. Curry.
Yes, sir, this will be the briefest of my 3 reports, hopefully. Most of the information was in this binder. I hope that you have the opportunity to look at it. All I'm doing is my staff report is hitting the highlights. The property owner, as you've heard, is TVT1 LLC. It's a Delaware company as of 2019. The neighbor, and we'll see this in the aerial there, your traditional ordinance requires that 100% of the entire height, fall on their property. As stated in my 1-page staff report, they were granted a variance by the Planning Commission because we have this letter basically saying that we have engineered, so basically I think as the explanation was for me, the legs, the bottom of the tower is going to be stronger than normal, and the upper part, if it fails, will be supported by the lower part, and it won't completely topple over. It'll fall basically and collapse on itself. So apparently that explanation was satisfactory to the Planning Commission. As you know, we just updated our telecommunication ordinance and reinforced that property size requirement that they were comfortable in granting the variance. Again, this is a replacement tower, currently 170-foot tower is out there, and this will be 250. The current one out there is a guide. It's got the wires going from it. This one will be a lattice, so it'll be self-supporting, as they call it. The applicant is stating that this will improve the coverage, capacity, and speed up there. You heard about the chain link fence, which is also required by your ordinance. Again, this is the bend and buckle explanation that you do have in your binder, with a fall zone of 30 feet, and I believe it was Rome Products, an engineer from that company, making the certification. There will be lights on the tower, and we've been told that AT&T will be the anchor tenant. And then you see the information, the design, speed, the strength of the steel, and how it's going to be designed to withstand. Of course, that's a higher area. Winds would be expected to be higher. I don't know that we get that much ice up there often, but we do occasionally get some, so that's certainly a concern. Again, you see in the staff report that the Planning Commission heard this case and recommended approval 5-0. At the same time, they granted the variance that we talked about. This demonstrates that variance that you can see. This is a very unique shaped piece of property, and obviously it should at minimum be round if it was going to include 100% of the fall. I call it sort of a hanger. It's a closed hanger with the top straightened out, but that's the configuration, and Planning Commission did not feel necessary to enforce the old rule. This is from the graphic that's from your binder that shows what generally the new tower will look like. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Why are we replacing it? It's not tall enough?
Not tall enough, and the existing tower won't support AT&T's equipment.
Okay. Who's transmitting off that tower now?
Right now, nobody. We had a radio, wireless internet company that went kaput.
Okay.
Okay, so that answers my question then. So you'll dismantle the guide tower there now and then erect this one. So you're not worried about any interruption of service, right?
And that's why it looks like a hangar, because that's where.
Yeah.
It'll be a much nicer piece of infrastructure for the county, for sure.
Put a little bit higher, so maybe it'll reach over.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none. You've got the Planning Commission and staff's recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the, as presented by staff.
Is there a second? Second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to work with the sheriff.
Thank you, and I appreciate everything y'all done.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Hey, just one 15-second snippet. I actually had somebody compliment you today, and I wanted to pass that along.
It does happen.
It does. It does happen, and they said that they appreciated the way you present yourself and you come across as a college professor. So there you go.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Doug.
new. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for everything you and the staff does. You want to introduce your intern while you got a second? Are you
wanna
going
do
to
it
come to
now,
that
right?
later?
Oh, sure, I think, yeah, why not? So.
Well, we had it scheduled, but we can do it now.
Okay.
This is Keenan Bridges. He is our intern for the summer. He is, once again, a relatively local person from Manchester, Georgia.
Blue
He is-
Devil.
Blue Devils, yes, sir.
He is attending, help me out.
I'm attending Alabama.
Alabama. There we go. I had the master's in here. It's Urban and Regional Planning Masters in the program. He's got his undergrad from there. He's now, the traditional spot is you, after your first year, you get your internship and then you complete your second year. So he's in that traditional middle spot. And he's got a number of cases that you may recall that this is part also of the ACCG grant, which we were gratefully awarded again. So he'll be working on your riverine corridor study and looking at riverine corridor protection. He started to work on that. He's asked me some questions, but he'll be with us between 3 and 4 months. So he's got some time to get that first draft to the Planning Commission. Also, you may recall that we have some trouble with our group home ordinance, and so he'll be working on that along with a couple of others. Those are the two biggies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, no one signed up for any public comments, so we'll move along. Consent agenda, you have your special call meeting minutes from April 19th, the regular meeting minutes from April 27th, and the approval of Terry Howe and Associates, Inc. for our commercial real estate services, acting as a broker for the county. Is there a motion on the consent?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay. Next on the new business, item D is the, is where I'd asked to move the approval of the resolution 0521 for the proposed changes to the rec department's fee schedule, hours of operation, branding, and other items. I just felt like, this is such a large, let's see if I've got it here. May not have printed it out. Anyway, it's a pretty all-encompassing thing. Commissioner Jones wasn't at our work session. Another reason probably to just discuss it real quick and put it out there. The big thing was establishing a good set of standard fees and schedules for programming. It talked about branding, even went so far as to talk about some other programs that were being worked on. Jason, you want to help me out here? Anything else that was in there?
Sure, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think you hit on a lot of the key elements, and I apologize, I don't have it in my packet either. But branding was a key component.
Yes.
But more importantly, the fee schedule, as the staff presented the fee schedule, there was a number of changes in there. I mean, there was a change to just about every one, and as we presented at the work session last week, the fee schedule hadn't been updated in nearly a decade or in excess of a decade. So there was the desire from staff to do a number of things, and I'll just do a couple of for instances. One, on the sports registration, cost for registration didn't necessarily include a lot of other items that parents would need and or want. So the thought for staff there was to combine them into one single registration where all items were included. So for a baseball, that includes shirt, pants, and pictures, basically a complete uniform where we were kind of hodgepodge from one sport to the next. And those really track back to the days from our old recreation commission, and a lot of these individual sports had their own little advisory boards and such. So in an attempt to try to create a unified effort moving forward, we looked at the cost for some of those items. Staff did some analysis on, how much those have been subsidized in the past. We used those same percentages and applied those so that we're not, we're going to apply all these same percentages as we did last time, as if to say the county's not subsidizing any more or any less than we were before. It's just an all-encompassing registration fee. There were revisions to the prices for community parks. That was one of the major changes that the board had asked for during the work session. There's a 3-tier fee schedule based on the amenities for the park. If you remember, staff presented a unified reservation cost, which some board members made a very good point that all community parks were not created equal, did not necessarily have some of the same amenities. So the changes in those prices are reflected in there. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to look at those. Other lower level items like the costs for renting rooms, I don't think had ever really been established by ordinance or by resolution before. And even in our ordinance, it doesn't speak to how the fees are necessarily supposed to be set. So it was a desire of myself to make sure that the board had a chance to weigh in on pretty much everything we were charging out there. So you'll see charges for the rooms, charges for the gym and the pickleball courts, for the fields, The staff recommended some membership pricing that kind of gives you all access, and there's a fee schedule for that. We propose renaming the rooms because we're obviously doing a major facility refresh over there, and saw some of the pictures as late as today. It looks phenomenal. Slight alteration to operation of hours, and then there was a recommendation for additional programs. So there was quite a bit in there, and all of that is encompassed in basically what we call like a ratification item, so that it took everything from the presentation that myself and the rec staff gave to you and gave us basically a one-stop approval for everything we presented, and made the modifications based on the feedback.
I just felt like, you know, that there was so much in there, and that we handled a lot of this at the work session, and I think it would just bow us if we could perhaps just maybe table this for a vote tonight and allow the public to have an opportunity to look at this, because, you know, the last thing I think we want to do is move forward on something and find out a week later that there was some angst or some recommendations from the community out there about some of this stuff. So I think it would be prudent on us just to table it, put it out there, entertain feedback, and then obviously if we table it, bring it back up for a vote at our next meeting. That was just my suggestion.
I think it's a good idea.
And I won't make that motion. I'll leave it.
Well, I have a comment. Should we have some of the registrations opening up Saturday. So, and I think they've been proposed at this fee schedule. Should we direct staff to potentially pull out that one piece and okay that one piece due to the registrations opening this weekend, basically?
Could we just vote on, table this, but then in a separate motion, approve staff to move forward with the fee schedules that are impacted by the current calendar? Or?
The registration fee
Mr.
schedule.
Chairman, I would advise that you could just do it in the same motion and just include language that, just to use the fee schedule as presented until further notice.
I think we're going to get all kinds of comments from the public out there, because every time somebody sees something, they got to comment. I don't know whether we need to listen to all the people in the community comment about the things that actually they hired us to do.
Well,
they're getting a heck of a deal on anything they got. So. But I would like to know what the previous fees were.
They were in the presentation.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
It brought it up to comparable to our surrounding counties, and offered several other features like all-inclusive jerseys, pictures, some of the things that weren't included before.
But we'll make sure that Commissioner Jones gets a copy of the presentation, and there's a slide in there that specifically shows current versus recommended.
I think it's in there. Did she send us a presentation? And it
Did not send it to me.
Oh, it's a shame.
Well, I'll make sure that Commissioner Jones gets a copy of the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I mean, I think it all looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them's a little cheap, but and I know the pickleball things are for people that, for $1.
Well, I think one of the ones I had questions on, I haven't had a chance to really dive into it, was the fee for the ball fields. It's $50 an hour, and it says lights included. But what if it's 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon and there's no programming going on? We're going to start them $50 an hour to go out there, and there's no caveat for all we're going to do. They're not asking to line the field or drag the field or anything. They just want to go out there and practice ball, and we're going to charge them $50 an hour based on that schedule.
Now, Mr. Chairman, if you remember, the clarification is that that's if you want to reserve a field. If you want to go, if you just want to go out there and play, then you can do that at no charge. It's only the reservation that creates the fee. In other words, once the activity becomes exclusive, then the fee is applied. There's no fee for
the ball fields are going to be unlocked.
The ball fields are unlocked and open. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess with that, I'm okay if y'all.
But they're reserved, right? It's
You
not-
can
they
reserve them.
Oh, it's
If you
not.
pay the fee,
Or is it
you can
first come,
reserve it.
first served?
It's first come, first served for free.
Exclusivity is a fee.
Showing up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Put little Billy on the mound.
And that's how it is for just about everything that we have. I mean, just like you can go to a community park, and if you want to, and go have a picnic lunch with your family, there's no charge for that. It's only if you want to reserve it for your exclusive use, then there's a fee involved.
I mean,
There's some things we may, you know, I mean, the resolution to me look pretty good. There's some things that we may need to discuss specifically when we receive the contract, because you can't put everything in the resolution.
Sure.
Yeah, and so, you know, there's some things in the contract, once I know that we probably need to discuss a little.
Well, I'm good with, since we got some stuff coming up this weekend, is to apply the fees. And then maybe at our next meeting, if nobody's jumped up and down and had a fit, that we go ahead and do the resolution next meeting or what?
I'm okay either way, now that we've talked about it a little bit. I mean, whatever y'all want to do, but if you, since you weren't at the meeting and
Yeah.
didn't have a chance to get,
Oh,
have not received a presentation or anything, I mean, you got the resolution
I
there.
think the fees are great. You know, like I said, some of them might be too cheap, but,
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want some time to think about it, then I say we could do that, but if not, I'd be open to offer a motion to approve as presented.
So are you making that motion?
I'll make, well,
Well, I was just gonna say, Chairman, just like Mr. Tinsley said earlier, I mean, it's pretty easy to fix it. It can be amended at some point in the future. You probably will end up wanting to tweak something anyway. So I think that it's imminent now, so, from a legal standpoint, I don't think there's gonna be any issue if you approve it tonight.
Okay. And if there's something come up that we have a problem with, we can easily change it.
I'll offer that as a motion to approve
As
as
presented?
presented, yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any more discussion? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay. That's why we have discussions.
Hey, I'm cool with that.
All right.
I will say that was a great presentation too.
It was a very great presentation.
It was. Sorry you missed it.
Quite detailed, but it
So, next on the agenda is a presentation from MSI. Mr. Bidwell's not here. On employee insurance.
must be aware.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, my name's Tommy Hayes, and I'm here for Matt. He had a scheduling conflict. He was up in somewhere in North Georgia and wasn't able to make it, so it's coming in his place. And I brought some of these presentations for everyone. It's for the July 1st renewal, so I was just going to go over that with all of y'all. Does everyone have a copy of it? So on the first page here is just kind of a recap of 2020. So the paid claims to the premiums were at just about 94%. So every dollar you're paying in, you're paying about 94% or 94 cents per dollar for the premiums. Cigna last year offered a medical renewal of 9.5%. That was reduced down to 5.46% by offering a second medical plan option with some plan changes on there. So they offered basically a base plan that moved your deductible from $2,000 up to $2,500 per year. The maximum out of pocket went up from $5,000 to $6,500. The primary care copay went from $25 to $30. Specialist $50 to $60, and then the emergency room went up another $50 as well. So the employee contributions last year did not change at all. So the employees didn't have any increase in cost. We did move to the dental over to Cigna, and there was an increase of 5%. And the basic life insurance and disability was changed over to One America as the life insurance carrier. So that's just a recap of last year. Now moving for this year and this upcoming July 1st renewal, a summary of that is going to be on page 2. So when you're looking at this, you'll see up top, your top left number, the annual premium. Currently, it's about $2.3 million with Cigna. And the renewal with Cigna is 3.9%, which would move it up to about $2.4 million. The employee cost currently is at $400,000, and the annual net cost of the county is about $1.9 million. If the initial renewal offer from Cigna was 17.28, it was negotiated down to that 3.9% increase. The employee cost then would be moving to $392,000, and then the net annual cost of the county would be just at around $2 million, the 5% increase. So the annual premium difference there from if you just went from current to the renewal and stuck with Cigna would be right at $100,000 to the county. Now MSI, we had looked at different insurance options. Another option on here was with Anthem, and this requires to be the medical requires to be bundled with the dental on there, and they came in with an annual premium about $2.3 million, which is actually a 2% decrease from what we're at right now. The employee cost would also go down to $390,000. Your annual net cost would be about $1.9 million, and the net increase, or it'd be a decrease in this case, of like 1.91%. So the annual premium difference would be about $37,000 decrease from what we're currently at. So about $137,000 difference there from renewing with Cigna as is to changing to Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield and bundling the dental on there. We also have another proposal from United Healthcare, and their annual premium was about $2.4 million. It was a 2.9% increase, so not as competitive as Anthem on there. The dental, second one down below, currently it's with Cigna. You'll see this is a voluntary benefit for the employees, and the annual premium right now with everyone who signed up is at $80,000. The renewal is coming in at $84,000 for an annual premium, which is about a 5% increase if you just renewed as is with Cigna. Like I mentioned with Anthem, they had a bundling option with their medical, and they had agreed to keep the dental as is and the same cost as what you currently have. So there'd be no change on that. And then lastly, the basic life insurance and the disability, that's in rate guarantee until next July. So there's no changes with that for this year since it was just put in place last year. So that's just a summary of everything. On page 3 is the Cigna medical plan, and it's going to have your current plan that you have as well as the renewal. You'll see on there the plans are still the same, and it's just showing, you have the base plan that's a $2,500 deductible that was added last year to be a little bit cheaper of an option. The buyout plan that has a $2,000 deductible. So they kept the plan designs the same, and again down below you'll see that 5% increase just renewing with Cigna. Now on page 4 here is the Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield spreadsheet. The plan, they matched it. It's exactly the same as what Cigna had as well. You have the base and a buyout plan. The base plan being the $2,500 deductible, 80% co-insurance with the $6,500 maximum out of pocket, and then the buyout plan with a $2,000 annual deductible, 80% co-insurance, and $5,600 max out of pocket.
So, question for you.
Uh-huh.
On the path that you are leading us on,
Uh-huh.
you're going to tell us that we're going to go, the recommendations that we're going to be going with Anthem, right?
That's what would make most sense.
I have a quick question. On this, I see the note under the Anthem Medical for the $5,000 wellness fund. I know there's some wellness fund that's in place now. How does that compare?
I think with Cigna from last year, I think it was around the same.
I think I can answer. I think currently we're providing.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
so
so
would that
currently,
help offset?
That 5,000 would offset what the county offers to the employees, and this would be new to the plan. So that where we offer people to bring reimbursements for their gym memberships as part of our wellness plan, we could apply this $5,000 towards that to offset that.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to cut you out, but I could see the path that we're on.
Yeah.
And if I go down here to
Summer.
page 11, recommendations. I'm a Navy guy. Show me the bottom line. So,
I certainly can. I can cut through a little bit of this. The United Healthcare you don't really need to look at. There are a few other things, Chairman, I was going to mention to you as
Sure, you came a long way, I don't wanna, it's your nickel.
What page you on that?
Well, the dental we'd already talked about, they'd match it, it'd be the same plan, be a 2-year rate guarantee on it. And then same with basic life and disability, all the same, no changes with that. The next one would be on page 9. We're proposing doing a flexible spending account for the employees. So this is a flexible spending account. It's not insurance. It's just a way that employees could contribute pre-tax per paycheck toward basically like a Visa card, and they can use that card for co-pays, deductibles, contacts, glasses, their child's braces, anything that would fall under those type of situations.
Is that the only thing they can use it for? Since
there's
it's
a lot.
pre-tax dollars, I mean, they can't just take it to Walmart, can they?
They can't take it to Walmart now.
Unless you're getting eyeglasses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, prescription.
unless it's glasses.
Okay.
So yeah, you can't just take it to go shopping with. It has to be fall under medical, dental, or vision
Okay.
expenses on there. So yeah, so it can be used for spouse or children. The IRS will let you go up to $2,750 as a maximum per person each year, and they do like a minimum of $200 because there is a small fee with it, and employees are able to roll over $500 a year. So it is a spending account, so employees are taking that money. It's pre-tax, it's put on that card, and then they can use that throughout the year, for those expenses. And then they need to make sure they're spending it up to, leaving less than $500 in the account to roll it over for the next year if they don't spend all the money. But it can be, useful for people who are having expenses like that, or prescriptions or anything. So yeah, receipts from transactions could be required. So anyone who does sign up for that would be holding on to that receipt just for proof of what what it was for, what the amount was.
Who administers that?
So this would be through like Admin America. They're up in Alpharetta. So
Okay, so no burden on
not staff, no,
okay.
sir.
yeah, and MSI would also help administer it as well. But yeah, so Admin America would handle it. They deal with getting the receipts and that administrative part of it. There is an admin fee of $4.50 per month for anyone who did sign up for it. But for whoever is paying toward those pre-tax dollars, the county doesn't have to pay matching FICA taxes on that. So really, it's kind of a wash at the end, but there's no real cost when you take out what you're not paying for the taxes to the $4.50 admin fee on there. And it's like I said, it's not insurance. It's a voluntary benefit for employees who like to use those. It's a way to have some pre-tax dollars on there. So, and then lastly was the voluntary benefits. It's on page 10. And we were recommending on here that staff was recommending that all voluntary benefits would be available just on our online enrollment platform as like a group benefits. I think currently there's a lot of individual plans out there where it's different plans and there's different premiums for them all. This would combine them all under like a group plan. It would allow the employees to have see the payroll deductions when they enroll online. And it avoids, again, like there may be a whole bunch of different plans. Someone had an old Aflac plan from years ago that's changed. This would kind of unify them and simplify it all. Make sure for payroll that all the deductions are correct. So we'd be reconciling those bills each month and doing that audit. And then for MSI could also administer any changes like terminations or additions on there. So anyone who does happen to have like a voluntary Aflac plan, they could still keep that. They would just pay for it instead of being a payroll deduction, they would just pay for it directly for whatever plan they have. And this would be like an Aflac critical illness and accident plan on there. And so page 11 there, that's just the 3 recommendations staff was recommending. Be moving to dental and vision with Anthem, flexible spending account, and moving to like a group plan for Aflac.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to add one, going back to page 4. One of the things that Anthem Blue Cross offered for us to move over to them, aside from a sizable discount from what we're currently being afforded through Cigna, they removed the $150 deductible for prescriptions.
Yeah.
So in essence, it's a 2% decrease with a slightly better plan. So I think one of them, we get very little negative feedback about the healthcare plans that we provide because obviously they're pretty robust. But one of the only complaints we do get was related to that $150 deductible on prescriptions, which Anthem removed for this particular renewal. So that would go to satisfy about 10 or 15 employees that I know of that'll take care of that issue. When our plan lapses every year, that they have to satisfy that deductible again. So they go to pick up the prescription in August, and sometimes it goes from 0 to whatever it was. Yeah, right. So anyway, so there's an additional benefit there.
Can I ask a question? You may know, you may not know, okay? All right, so every year, the company I work for changes plan. I mean, it's just the way it happens. I don't have the county plan. So, I come out with a new one this year, and I don't use all the stuff they give me. So, but now they've got a new one where we're still with Anthem, but the deductibles went up. And now they've got a Discovery benefits plan that pays you back for whatever extra it costs you to be in the plan. You ever heard of that?
Do you know, like you said,
It's called Discovery benefits.
I think it's an HRA. I think we actually had that 3 years ago here with Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, if you
and it's like a self-funded way of reducing an employee. So your employer is contributing that back to you through some kind of program to reduce your total obligation under what your maximum out-of-pocket is.
Right.
And the chairman may remember our plan was designed like that 2 or 3 years ago, and when we switched to Cigna, we removed that.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, all the deductibles, everything went up, but then they give them right back to you.
Because that part is not insured. That's the small part your company is sort of self-insuring. They're just paying you back for it through a payment.
It can be very different from fully insured and self-insured. Or self-insured, you're taking a lot more of that liability, and if the claims run really well, then the county, ended up, instead of just paying your premiums each month, you're paying all the claims. If you have really good claims, then you can maybe reimburse that back to employees. But you're also taking a lot more risk. If you have quite a few big claims, then your costs will go up. So it just kind of depends. But that would be a totally different funding of the plan to do that.
Okay, so staff recommendation to go with Anthem BCBS.
Yeah, we work very closely with Matt and his staff to they prepared the presentation, but
right.
Based on the guidance we gave. Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll always do this. Jessica, what do you think? All right. When it comes to this, it's got to have the Jessica Stewart approved because she's had so much
She's the one
history with managing this stuff for us. Don't think you do it so much anymore, but
luckily.
Yeah. So you have staff's recommendation. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we go with the staff recommendation.
Second.
So a motion made, seconded to go with the staff's recommendation to go with Anthem BCBS for this year. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I wanted to say hi to everyone. And,
Tell them we said hi.
all right, sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving right along. We get extra credit for this meeting tonight. Can you imagine Commissioner Spraggins right now? Commissioner Ellington, not this one, but the other one.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
before
sir.
you do the next thing? Did we pass this resolution? Do we need to read it out loud?
No.
It's available if anybody wants.
Okay.
I didn't know if we needed to
Good
read
call,
it.
though. I mean, it was lengthy.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, as soon as we can get that out there. All right, discussion and approval of change order for Pobity Road. Jason?
Chairman Allen, this is identical as presented by our engineering staff.
Skip one.
Skip an item.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I?
Oh,
The budget amendment.
Oh, there we go. Discussion and approval of a budget amendment with resolution 06-2021.
Mr. Chairman, so this budget amendment is very simple. So we are asking the board to appropriate our 2020 CARES Act funds that fell to fund balance for the purposes of increasing the road department's budget by $64,800 for the purposes of realizing these funds to pay for the Lovin Contracting litter removal contract that the board approved a few meetings ago. So this is just a simple housekeeping measure. It increases the revenue line by an equal amount for the expense, and again, that's an appropriated fund balance.
Okay, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the bottom line on this, therefore be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners hereby formally amend the 2021 operating budget for the Upson County as reflected in the departmental budget amendment request form attached here, where, like the county manager said, it's appropriating $64,800 CARES Act fund and moving it to the road department to pay for the right-of-way litter removal. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment as presented.
Is there a second? Any other discussion? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay. Back to where we were. Discussion and approval of change order for Pobity Road. Jason?
Mr. Chairman, this was presented by Chris in the work session, our engineer from EMC. So in a brief recommendation memo, I'll read it because it's very quick. EMC has completed the necessary roadway evaluation and engineering for Pobity Road as necessary to develop bid documents. As discussed at the work session, CW Matthews was provided with the big documents, and they received the attached bid form in the amount of $1,339,248.93, and it is the recommendation to the board to approve the change order as such, and that was written by Chris from our engineering firm. Now, just as a reminder, the funding sources are 2021 LMEG. So essentially what we're doing is we're adding the LMEG project as a change order to the existing T-SPLOS Phase 2 project with CW Matthews.
Right, and LMIG for 2021 was roughly?
$720,000 roughly.
Okay.
The remainder of that 1.339 will come from 2016 SPLOST.
Okay. And since Commissioner Jones wasn't there, this just taking advantage of the fact that CW is already mobilized, they're here, and we'll realize some getting this done faster and hopefully some cost savings since they're already mobilized. So
I'm good with it.
okay.
Anytime we can pave a road.
Okay. So is there a motion on this staff recommendation to approve this change order?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. All right. Discussing results from the survey on enforcement of codes is the main priority for improving county attractiveness.
Jessica, can I borrow yours? I seem to have misplaced mine. Mr. Chairman, so you have in your packet the results from our very first online survey. As the board may remember, we asked a two-part question. One was an open-ended question, and that question was relating to how we can improve the county's attractiveness. And then there was the second part that asked them to rank 5 different areas of code enforcement that were as follows: poorly maintained homes and buildings, illegal dumping and trash debris in private yards, abandoned vehicles, and the burning of yard waste. So the results are in, And our partners at Zen City that did the survey for us have provided you with some pretty elegant analysis of both questions, and I think you're going to find the most interest in the open-ended question, because you'll see some responses that aren't even really in response to the question, but it gives you an idea of where our community stands on a lot of these. There was I think there was 423 responses, and I'll just cover some of the top 3 or 4. So in the open-ended question, enforcement was the number one mentioned issue in that open-ended question, and the most prominent suggestion was to increase enforcement of current laws. Several residents mentioned that enforcement is not maintained equally across all residents. So apparently, among several of the respondents, there's a thought that perhaps some people are
Above the law.
correct, that we're not equally administering the program. And I will tell you that your staff goes through great lengths to try to make sure that we equally administer the code enforcement program. So to know that there's a deficiency in communication out there helps us understand where people feel. The second most popular item that was mentioned in the open-ended question were private homes and buildings maintenance. Residents mentioned private homes and buildings are not maintained enough and are an eyesore. Several residents mentioned that dilapidated buildings should be restored instead of building new ones. Some also, I thought that was an interesting conglomeration of responses. And implementing community-funded home repairs for homes that are falling apart if owners can't afford to fix them. Several also connected the rundown state of houses to an excess of Section 8 housing in the county. So the third most popular, keeping in mind that enforcement was number 1 and mentioned in about 107 respondents. And then the issue with private homes and building maintenance was 79, getting down to about 55 responses. Now we go into building development and employment. A substantial number of residents mentioned the need for more employment opportunities in the county. Many suggested relaxing alcohol sales restrictions in an effort to increase revenue.
How can you relax?
So I'm confused. So we need people to go to work, but we want to relax alcohol sales, which we don't restrict in any way right now.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Anyway, just for the weekends, I guess.
The fourth most commonly mentioned was trash in yards, and then the last, which was about 37 of the respondents, and then they trickle down from there. Some residents complained that trash pickup was not sufficient, specifically mentioning the lack of dumpsters, bulk trash pickup, and the need for a recycling program. So I felt that was really an interesting, and that is something that I do here in my office from time to time. The fact that we do not have a recycling program. So
I actually heard one community somewhere near here, I think it was on the radio, where they're doing away with recycling because it's just they can't find anyone to take the material. It's not cost effective anymore.
Mr. Chairman, it's a common problem amongst my peers in other counties. They're having the same problem, and in a lot of cases, they're just having to landfill the material that they're recycling.
So they're separating it and dumping it.
Yeah, because they can't find a market for
That's
it.
right. There's no market.
Yeah. When 5 or 6 years ago, that was a totally different story. I mean, some of the stuff was actually being shipped overseas, but now it's a different market.
It is. There's no profit.
So,
and then lastly, Mr. Chairman, and then I'll be quiet. I just want to get through this here. So as those ones that I mentioned, where we actually asked people to rank those 5, poorly maintained homes and buildings came at number 1 with an average response of 3.8 is the most highest priority item. And I will say that is the validation part of, I think, what the commission is already trying to achieve. And I was telling the consultant that put this together, I mean, we can look at that and say that we're on the right track with that, because when you basically broke our code enforcement efforts into 5 categories and asked people to rank them, the number 1 ranked one is the one we're concentrating on the most right now. So I think that's validation that the commission is headed down the right path.
I want to make a slight comment. I don't know why they had enforcement single line by itself. because 90% of that is enforcement. So it all ought to be on the top line.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond to Commissioner Jones, that was the free-form question. So this is just them trying to dig into the data of how people responded to the open-ended question. So as you'll see, Parks and Recreation made 11 comments, and it didn't have anything to do with the question that was asked. So there was, the common theme, I think, as you well point out in the open-ended question, is people just say enforce what you got. That's the biggest problem. Mm-hmm. So and again, as validation, I think I've heard that from every single board member in the last 18 months. So the ordinances are there. Let's enforce what's there. So to me, there's some interesting insight and some areas where we can improve, and there's also areas of validation that show that you're on the right track with code enforcement.
Now, we got the summary. Did you get to see any of the actual stuff?
It's all available to you if you'd like to see. You can see each individual response.
I just wonder what they had to say about public safety and stuff,
Yeah, and I can
16 responses there, EMS, public safety.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, do we have the link? Was that link sent to us to?
For this, no, I only provided it in summary form, but yeah, I can.
I
You can drill into the data to where they pulled that from
Yeah.
in different responses.
So for us to actually look at it, we have to go. Can you just send us a link to go to, or do we have to PDF scan the whole document to go through all 5?
So to drill down into that level of detail would take a little bit of training. So
Okay.
but if you want me to ask, the easiest thing to do was ask to say, hey, can you give me all the responses that surrounded, and I can give you whatever you want. Yeah.
I'd
Or
kind of
just-
like to know, did the guy that got locked up got mad at the police? So he put a bad,
You can come in for lunch and bring Jason lunch and then sit and have a good laugh.
Well, there are 20 comments roughly on taxes and expenditures and how that makes Upton County more attractive. I'm just curious to see.
Sure. Yeah. All that data is available. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, that answers my question because I have now what action to take. That was my note to myself. So I guess so if you have anything you want Jason to dig up for you. Otherwise,
No.
we're on a good course.
I think that's a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner meeting there.
I would add one final comment, Mr. Chairman. If I would, as off track as maybe some people feel, it is a medium, or it's a way that people can communicate with us, even if they're trying to communicate something that we're not asking. Yeah. And to me, I think that's a valuable thing. So if there are other items, other areas of the services we offer that the commission wants us to study like this, I was very skeptical at first, but I found it in the end to be a very valuable and interesting tool. So if there's other areas of the services or community hot button items that the commission wants to try to engage the public in again, I would consider this first attempt by many measures to be very successful. So I'd be interested to try it again.
Okay. All right. So moving along, we're down to the comments. So with that, Jason, would you continue?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be very brief. My first was to welcome our intern. Thanks for joining the team. He's been great to have around campus. Fist bump him. He's always wearing a smile.
Noticed that.
Second, our moratorium on certain items as far as applications and licenses for different segments of our economy, or the moratorium is coming due, and we'll have to take action on that in some way. If we want to extend it, we will have to take action on it at the next board meeting. Otherwise, it will lapse. And then the last thing I just want to say, please be patient with the facilities crew. We found out today that our guard that works our prison crew left employment with Spalding County unexpectedly, and we are now without a prison crew. Today's the first day, so I had a word with the city manager. The city generally has 2 crews. They're down to 1 right now. But in certain instances, he's going to share his with us so we can just stay on top of some of the more visible items. And I just want to publicly thank the city manager, Russell, for offering to tackle the courthouse grounds with his crew tomorrow. So,
and I really appreciate that.
so they're going to step up and clean our courthouse for us outside tomorrow. So thank you to the city council and to the manager for offering to do that in our time of hardship. So obviously the facility staff will be doing a lot of this on their own. And we're going to be utilizing a few other staffers from other areas of the county to try to chip in. We're also looking at temporary stopgap measures, which would include but not exclude anywhere from doing some combination of assistance from the city, assistance from other departments, and potentially also some contract work. So I talked to the warden personally today, and he gave me about a 30 to 60 day timeline on a replacement. So, and of course, this is prime time for that, for growing weather. So we'll do our best to stay on top of it, but just know that we're struggling for help. That is all.
Well, and you might want to just touch on, so the ARP monies, guidelines are coming out on that. And so as
they were released yesterday,
yeah,
in 120 pages. So we're already starting to scan it, and we were told by ACCG that they're going to have a summary out pretty soon. So, yeah. But it was from what I saw, I'm very pleased with the guidance. So it looks like we're going to have a lot of options.
Options are good. So, okay. Jessica, you got anything for us?
I don't.
Mr. English? I know we've got an executive session coming up. We've got some more stuff to talk about. But Mr. Jones, have any comments? The group?
No, we probably need to move on.
Mr. Wilder?
I have nothing but pop.
Yeah, okay. The only thing I'll say is the county's sponsoring a job fair tomorrow. If you're looking for work, I think we're going to have a booth there. We've got jobs to fill. There are jobs out there. So if you're watching, you know someone needs work, send them to the Civic Center tomorrow, or just drive around town and look at the now hiring signs everywhere. So with that, we are going to go into executive session, and we will likely have a vote to follow. So I don't know, do we just suspend?
No, it has to end.
It has to end.
So the vote
Can we
won't
just
be-
say, we just keep it live and not be in the room for a few minutes? Or
If you're comfortable with that, we can.
is that, what would you recommend that we come back?
I would just recommend that we have the executive session in the county manager's office.
I can turn the microphone off, so.
I don't trust that.
We'll step out, have the executive session, and then come back and either take action or adjourn. So if we just want to leave it, I don't know if somebody wants to stay in here.
How does the city?
The city says, they usually have a banner that says executive session, back soon.
We could have had that, but y'all
We did.
wanted to stop it after. So,
Yeah,
but there's not a breaking hour.
okay. So if you're watching, stay tuned. The room will be empty for a few minutes.
Maybe a little while.
And we'll be back. So stay tuned. With that, we can have a motion to enter executive session to discuss real estate.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Mute it so
We're
it's
in
not-
executive session. We'll step out and we will come back.
So we'll see you Thursday. I appreciate all y'all people there. All right, so we'll give a bonus. Take care of that. See you Thursday. See you Thursday.
We're good. Nobody's here.
We don't do it.
I don't think we're going to upset anybody tonight unless you're just comfortable hanging out with us.
Trying to get out here.
We don't do
Not raining? Was it raining before? Oh, look. We need it rain.
Okay, so we're out of executive session and back into our open meeting.
He did it in there.
So, is there a motion on what was discussed in executive session?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chairman to execute options to purchase property for the purpose of a proposed county court facility. These terms are as discussed in executive session, and once the options are executed, the terms will be disclosed.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jones. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes, and so we're moving forward with the proposed, getting some property under option so that we can start doing some due diligence. And so obviously once we have these options inked, then we'll be able to share details of that. We suspect that we'll have one done within the next day or so, and the other hopefully within the next week. For obvious reasons, we don't really want to get into the terms until we have ink on paper, but it does authorize me on behalf of the board to execute these and get moving. So it's been a long time coming. We've spent a long time working on this, and look forward to this proposed project. And I know there'll be a lot of questions coming our way. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? It's been a long meeting.
Been a long time.
Been a very, yeah. So
It's productive.
Very, very productive. And I appreciate everyone's work and patience in getting us to this point. So if there's nothing else, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I just hope former
We're still-
Commissioner Scraggins is watching and appreciating this.
This, you want to recycle this stuff?
Believe it or not, this is not my record for Upson County.
Doug, want these books back?